On today's video, I'm going to show you how to do the crocheted chevron stitch like you can see I have used on this cute little basket that I use to hold my crochet hooks and stuff that I use to crochet. This stitch is worked in the round and it is such a unique, stylish sort of stitch that I want to show you how to do it so that you can try it out on your next project. I'm Lavina Perry and this is Solo Stitching. Let's stitch. So to start the crocheted chevron stitch, I am going to do some chain stitches that we can attach and make a circle with. For practicing, you can do this with, if you're counting off stitches, do it in an even number plus 1. So if you want it to be 20 stitches long, you would go ahead and crochet 21 stitches or chain 21 stitches. I'm gonna do a small circle just so that we can make it all of the way around and you can see how everything connects and figure out the mechanics of how the stitch moves from row to row and get started with the chevron stitch. So let's count and see what we have here. 14, 16, 18. I'm going to go ahead and do 3 more. So I'll be working with 21. So now that I have my chain stitches, I am going to go ahead and do a slip stitch into the first stitch or the stitch farthest from the hook. So I inserted my hook and pulled up one, and I'm just going to pull it through the last stitch that I made. And now I am going to single crochet into each stitch around, and you can do that through the back loop, you can do it through the front, through the top loop, through the bottom loop, however you want to do it. I think crocheting through the back loop always gives it a really nicely finished look, but crocheting through the front is a little faster and simpler, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for this tutorial. If I was making this for a project that I was working on and I was going to be starting with the chevron stitch, like for a hat or mittens or something, I would likely crochet into this back loop or the back bump of the stitch. But just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and just single crochet around this entire circle that we've created so that I can show you how to do this chevron stitch. So for the basket that I made, I wasn't starting with a row of single crochets from chain stitches. I worked my single crochets into the base that I created for my basket. So just keep that in mind if you're wanting to work this stitch into something as part of a project. You're still going to start with a row of single crochets and then work the chevron stitch. All right, getting around to the front here, or to the end I should say, not the front. All right. Okay. Okay, so we are back to the end. I have single crocheted into all of the stitches around. So I'm going to join this with a slip stitch. I'm going to chain 1, so I've got my yarn separated there, chain 1, and then I'm going to make 2 single crochets starting in the same stitch. One and 2. Okay, now we start into the chevron. So to create the chevron, it's going to start with 2 single crochets every time, and then we're going to work into the first single crochet into the bottom of the stitch. So you can see there's 1 single crochet, there's 2 single crochets, so I'm going to work into the bottom. I'm going to start a single crochet, but I'm going to pull up a long loop, and then I'm going to work into the bottom of not the second crochet, but the stitch over. And I'm going to pull up a long loop again. So now I have 3 loops on my hook, and they're all stretched up to the same height, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those stitches. Now, since I worked into the bottom of this stitch, I'm going to do 2 more single crochets, but I'm going to skip that stitch and move to the next stitch. There's 1 single crochet and 2 single crochets. And now again, I'm going to go back to the first single crochet and work into the bottom of that, pulling up a loop, a long loop, and then not under the second one, but under the next stitch, I'm going to go and work into the bottom of that stitch and pull up a long loop to meet the other loops that I've created. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And we're going to do that one more time, and then I'm going to let you work around the row. So we're not going to be working into this stitch because we worked into the bottom. So we're going to skip this stitch and we're going to move to the next stitch. Insert my hook, pull up a loop, complete single crochet, insert the hook, pull up a loop, complete single crochet, and then I'm going to work into the bottom of the first single crochet by inserting my hook, pulling up a loop, pulling it long, skipping my second single crochet, moving to the next stitch and working into the bottom of that stitch, pulling up a long loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on my hook. And I'm going to go ahead and continue around, and then I will come back and show you how to connect everything. Okay, so we're back at the beginning of the row where the beginning and the end meet. I have done my 2 single crochets, so I'm going to go into the bottom of my first stitch, and then I'm skipping this stitch, so I'm gonna go into this right here where you can see where the hole is, where the other chevron stitch began with the first stitch. I'm going to insert and pull up my long loop and pull through all 3. And I'm going to place a stitch marker there so that I know every time I get around to the beginning so that I can count my rows. And I placed it in that last stitch that I did because that is the first stitch of this row. So now I'm skipping that and I'm going to go to the next stitch over and do 2 single crochets. And I'm going to be working into this hole all the way around. So where you started your last chevron stitch is where you're going to be doing your second loop for the next stitches coming up all the way around for the rest of the rows. Just to give you kind of a visual landmark for where your stitches are going to land going forward. So I'm just going to keep working these long crochets and then doing 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, again working into the first single crochet, and then very easily I can see this is where my chevron stitch began. That is the hole I'm going to be putting my hook through to pull up the second loop for the long single crochet, skipping a stitch and working into the next single crochet. 1, 2, long single crochet, long single crochet, and then through all 3 loops, 2 single crochets, 1, 2, pulling up a long loop, oops, and a little more yarn here. Completing the long single crochet, skipping 1 stitch, 2 single crochets, insert, pull up a loop, again finding the beginning of my last single crochet right there, or my last chevron stitch, sorry, and pulling up a long loop, pull through all 3, and now we are back to the beginning of our work. So now we can start to see the formation of our chevron stitches and how they're going to run diagonally up our project. So I'm going to go ahead and finish a couple more rows and then come back so that we can fully see that chevron pattern forming. Go ahead and stitch along and get some practice in so that you can add this skill to your crochet tools to be able to make amazing creative projects. Alright, so I went ahead and finished 3 more rows, so now we can really see those diagonal chevrons really showing up in our project, and you can see like it would be so cute on a hat. Or like the basket I made. I've also used this stitch on a purse that I made. So you can see how I worked the chevron stitch into this bag as the middle portion. So even though I was starting this with stitches that were already here, I went ahead and did that 1 row of single crochets all the way around before I started the chevron stitching. And if you would like the pattern for this bag, you can go ahead and drop down into the description where I will have a link to the pattern so that you can make this a little cutie all for yourself or give it away as a gift. This is one of my favorite bags. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can keep up with all of my fresh content and inspiration and new ideas. If you click the link below, you can also grab a free pattern for some crocheted cozy sock slippers that I created, and the link for the pattern will also be down in the description. So until next time, happy stitching.